7:04, and I'm calling the meeting to order. Would the members please identify themselves? Michael, since I see you.
Yep. Michael Capizzi, member, Concord Historical Commission.
Thank you. And Alan?
Alan Bogosian, member, Concord Historic Commission.
And Chessie, wherever you are.
Hi, sorry, I'm holding a baby. That's why my camera's off. But Chessie,
Excuses.
I know. Chessie
And-
Cataldo, associate member.
And I'm Nancy Nelson, member of the Historical Commission. So we are in session. And Nancy Frisello Lee is also just writing me. Just hang on a second and I'll see what she has to say for herself. She might be in London. She can't find the Zoom invitation to the meeting. Okay, I'll see if I can. I'll see if I can send it to her. Hang on a minute. And I think you sent it. Let's see.
I can try to send it if you want to continue the meeting.
That would be fine if you think you could find it faster, and I bet you could. That would be great because I'm having a hard time on my little. Yeah, why don't you try?
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. There she is. She got it. Okay, she'll be on in a second. So we can proceed to look at the application for a historic marker. And Felicia, would you like to speak to that a little bit and tell us about it?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, thank you for your consideration. I applied on the basis of a couple different criteria. The first being age of the home. We know that it was built circa 1870. And Anne was very kind to find some additional details for me about the house's history. It was built by a man named Michael Wallace, born in Ireland, who came here, settled here and bought the land. And the house was built around 1870. He married. They had 6 children, and I proceeded to find out that the house remained in the Wallace family for over 100 years. And there were many Wallaces, many cousins who grew up in this neighborhood. So the age is established and undisputed. The second criteria that I described was the contribution. So we know that there are so many luminaries who were a part of Concord's history, and they are rightly celebrated. But in the case of Michael Wallace, he was just an ordinary citizen who contributed by working as a local farmer, and also for a time worked on the railroad tracks, which are just behind the house. The house was one of the first to form the Behind the Depot neighborhood, which is what we still call it to this day.
Right.
And a little bit further around the corner was the site of the architectural fairgrounds, which in and of itself has a really kind of unique and special history, where there were cattle shows and circuses, if you can believe it. So it's a very unique and special neighborhood. There's the house. The original house is very much intact. We built a small addition towards the rear about 10 years ago. So those were my criteria. And I would also just add that this is an old and sort of special neighborhood, but there are not any homes in this neighborhood that have the historical marker. So I think it would be nice, even though there are still some of the old original houses still standing. So
Your neighborhood's changing very quickly, I think.
it is. There have been a lot of, unsurprisingly, there have been a lot of big new houses built within the past, 5 to 10 years since I've been here. So all the more reason, I think, to preserve and note the ones that have ties to Concord's history.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm not remembering the process we follow. Do we vote? Anne, do you remember? Do we vote to recommend language, or do the applicants come back and recommend language, or do you recall? This is a little new.
You do vote to recommend language. I think the application said just the Wallace House circa 1870. I don't know if you want to leave it at that, or if you wanted to
Okay.
name Michael.
Okay, so we could vote on this tonight, if people are so inclined.
Alan, do you feel comfortable with that?
I do. I would just like to, I would vote for it, based on the language that she's going to put in there with it. Can we decide on the exact language later on? But I think it's a great idea.
And Anne, you're comfortable with that?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes, I checked the facts, and it's definitely the Wallace House circa 1870.
Okay,
Yeah.
so could we have a motion to approve a historic marker, the Wallace House, and the date, and perhaps additional language a little later? Did I hear that correctly?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, okay. And was there a motion for that? I could move it. I could move that. I'll make a motion for that.
I'll
Is there a
second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Alan? We can vote,
I'm for it. Yeah.
okay, and Michael?
Yes, I'm
And
for it.
let's see, who do we have? Who do we have? I think someone, Nancy or Chessie, would be voting in lieu of the folks who are not here. Is Chessie? Chessie, you're voting as a full member, so what say you?
I am voting as a full member.
I think you can, because we're missing 2 people.
Right.
I'm sorry, this is gonna be a little rocky tonight, folks.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just the MDC, and the MDC, I'm the MC.
Right.
So we need 1, 2, 3, we need 2 people who could vote, who could step up, who are associates, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that correct, Anne? Just want to verify
Yeah,
that.
let's verify
Yes,
all around.
yes,
So,
yes.
So
yes.
Chessie.
Okay, great. This is very exciting. I vote in favor. Great.
Right.
And Nancy Fasella Lee. Nancy, where are you? Are you across the
I'm
pond,
here.
or?
No, I'm here in Concord.
Okay, what say you?
Yes, I vote in favor, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Felicia. I think that's a
Thank you.
great idea, and I hope more of these signs pop up in your neighborhood.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
thank you. Okay, thanks, thanks,
you sign
everybody.
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to sign off.
Oh, bye.
Thank
Good to
you
meet
all.
Good to meet you. Okay, I'm going back to the regular order of business, and we have a public hearing. It's a demolition review for Elm Street Realty Trust, the former Howard Johnson's and the former paparazzi. So I think Mr. Silverstein is here. He wrote the letter. I think I actually called you by mistake, thinking I was going to speak with Anne.
You did.
Good to see you here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And would you like to proceed?
Certainly. Thank you so much. Well, as you indicated, Madam Chair, my name is Jonathan Silverstein. I have an office in Concord at 9 Damon Mill Square, and I am representing the applicant for this demolition review. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the paparazzi's restaurant location. The building was originally built as a Howard Johnson's restaurant in connection with the neighboring motel, and as the report to the commission indicates, and the survey by the Mass Historical Commission, indicates there were a number of historically significant features that were attended this building that would have identified it as a Howard Johnson's. But most, if not all, of those features over the years have been eliminated. There's no longer an orange roof. It's not tile. The lantern at the top is long gone. A lot of the other exterior features, the 3 dormers that were noted as being significant in the survey, were replaced with a single center dormer that looks nothing like them. The original tripartite facing windows that the survey noted were 6/6 sashes flanked by 4/4s.
Mhm.
Those have been replaced with metal clad sliders of no historic significance. So the building really bears little resemblance. No one passing by would identify that as, oh, that looks like a Howard Johnson's that I
Right.
remember from my youth. And so at this point, the applicant is planning to redevelop the property, cannot find a restaurant tenant who's even interested in the property. This building would only be useful for a restaurant. And even for that use, it's outdated, it's run down. It's not, it would be extremely costly to try to renovate it. And its location smack in the center of a giant sea of asphalt really wouldn't lend itself to redeveloping the rest of the property anyway. And so the applicant is seeking permission to demolish the structure and so that it can proceed with redevelopment of the site for commercial purposes. Be
Okay.
happy to. I did with my letter. The applicant recently did its walkthrough and took a number of photographs of the current condition of the site. I'm happy to answer any questions. And those photographs, I think, were circulated to the board, to the commission rather. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Do the voting members tonight have any questions, or even, I guess we're all voting members, so does anybody have any questions or comments about this?
No, I'm just curious, the gentleman that just spoke, I believe you're the attorney, is that correct?
I am, sir.
Yeah. So did you read the documents that were provided to us from the planning department as it relates to this property prior to the meeting?
The
were
only
posted
documents I'm
online.
aware of are the survey that I've just referenced, as
Meeting
well
doc-
as the determination by Ms. Clifford.
Right. And the determination was that it was significant. Is that correct?
Right. I mean, obviously, no application comes before the commission unless that determination is made.
So, and again, I don't mean to go on, but our role is to preserve historic infrastructure. That is our role as the Historic Commission. And it would seem to me, predicated on the decades that the home has been there. And I hear your comments. Many structures that are 80, 90, 100 years old, 200 years old need substantial investment to sustain them. So, I'm for preserving the structure if somebody wants me to comment on that. I don't think I need to go into detail why. I think the documentation supports that. I understand from a developmental perspective, if we were the ZBA or some other entity in town, we would say, oh, this is an opportunity to increase the tax base and et cetera. But it seems to me that our role and our goal is to sustain historic infrastructure. And for me personally, I think that the structure is relevant. And I do think that somehow or other, and I certainly have dined there over many decades. As I remember, Charlie Sarkis that owned it, his daughter went to Newton Country Day School with my children, so I'm familiar with with the restaurant and the family that had it for years. So, but I do think it has relevance, and certainly I cannot support this being demolished. I certainly would like to support a time frame where we could, where the planning department or whomever could discuss viable opportunities to initially save the structure, or certainly some elements of the structure. So I'll stop at that. And Alan, if you want to comment.
Okay, thank you.
Nancy?
Other comments? Thank you, Michael.
That's okay.
Other comments?
Yep, I guess I'm trying to take myself out of the emotional attachment to that building, and it's
Right.
only because, you know, in my youth, that's how my dad got started. He wired every Howard Johnson's from here to Oklahoma City.
Right.
And so we are no strangers to Howard Johnson's, and going sitting at the counter and having ice cream and going for clams on Friday night. But what I'm trying to do is take myself out of it. And I guess if I go back and look at what is my task on this committee, it's to prefer the structures that are still around. And so I would like to see some more information on this before we give the go ahead to knock it down, because I think it is a nice structure, and it's been there as long as I have. So.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Other comments from the members? Nancy, you look like you want to say something.
I'm trying to unmute myself.
Oh.
I think I read that this was only the second Howard Johnson's, maybe in this. No, I think Howard Johnson's was founded in the state, right? The founder.
Yes.
Massachusetts.
Yes.
And
I believe it was just outside of Springfield in the Long Meadow, if I remember correctly.
And I think maybe in our materials somewhere I read that this was only the second one that was built.
Right.
I find really interesting.
I can clarify that if you'd like.
Great. Please.
Let's see. There were 132 built before 1940, but this is one of the early ones built in the 1930s. The original one was built in 1929 in Quincy.
Right.
There are only, I think, 2 that were surveyed in the Macris forms, and the other is still existing in Orleans, Mass. And that's
Where Orleans, the one near Franklin Park, is no more. I remember. Do I remember that correctly? Somebody help me.
I'm not sure.
And there's one down at the Rotary at Route 2 in
I think
Cambridge
that's
as
the
well.
one. That's
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We were staples there, Nancy, at that one, but
and just because it's not surveyed in Macris doesn't mean that there aren't others in the state. There probably
Yeah.
are others that do still exist.
So I mean, that just to me is that since it's an early one, that is an important fact about this, the building. It still does read to me without some of those elements that are so characteristic, especially the coloring, the colors, and that it still does read like Howard Johnson's. I mean, the general shape is the same. I think I went there today and I drove around it. The back of the building, I think that those are new additions. It also, as long as the motel next door exists, I think someone who is perceptive could maybe identify it as a historic or Howard Johnson's, but they're different owners, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to clarify that. And have we, I'm fairly new on the commission, have we seen other buildings of this kind of date in the demolition review, like a commercial building I'm talking about?
Not my memory, but I wouldn't rely on it.
not like this, but when the when the grocery store downtown was preserved for the new restaurant, when the 5 and 10 was preserved for Deborah's Gourmet. Those were all preferred, right? Preserved.
You're
Preferably.
talking about Anderson's, right?
Yes.
Which used to be a grocery store. That's right.
Yeah.
And still looked pretty much like that from the outside.
Mhm.
Right.
Maybe partly from the inside. Okay, Nance, is that it?
I think that's it for now. Yep.
Okay, Jesse? Anybody
Um,
else?
I
Jesse?
just one question, I guess, is the argument or the only reason on the table that it would not be preferably preserved, the fact that some of the distinguishing characteristics have been removed over time? Is that?
That might be
No.
one line of thinking. That's one line of thinking, that there's really not very much left of what it used to be.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing any other argument, but that,
And
okay.
there is another argument, which
Okay.
is that in addition to the fact that, I mean, perhaps someone who's extremely perceptive and knows the history might recognize it. As a former Howard Johnson's, there's really not much left. The fact is that it's not salvageable for beneficial reuse. My client has been searching high and low. It owns a lot of commercial real estate. Its principals are on the line if you want to hear from them directly. There is zero interest from any restaurateur in this site. The property, the building could only possibly be reused as a restaurant, and then only with significant, significant cost for renovation, but there's no restaurant interested. So if it's deemed preferably preserved, it's going to sit vacant for a year before it's demolished because there's no one interested in operating a restaurant there. So, our thinking is that if there are any elements that are left, and really I think that chimney's the only thing that's original that's left, we'd be happy to take any efforts to preserve those and turn them over for any use that the commission deems appropriate. But deeming this building preferably preserved will not result in it being preserved in the long run, because it simply can't be. There's no use available for it.
Okay, I have one question. Michael raised some documents and maybe a meeting with the planning board. I'm not familiar with that. I'm sorry if I missed that, but has your client gone to the planning board or any other boards, town boards already? It looks like maybe yes. So what was the discussion like there?
So I can speak. I'm Kerry McCormick. I'm with Crosspoint Associates. So we're
Thank you.
looking to acquire the property and redevelop. We own, over 3 million square feet of retail property throughout New England. So we have a lot of background and a lot of associates with a lot of retailers and restaurants throughout our portfolio. For this particular building, we've been before the town, we've been for the town staff for initial review, showing them our proposed project, and it was very well received. We have a great architect on board to kind of work with us to kind of adapt the future facade to conform with a lot of the architecture vernacular in the local area in Concord. And one thing we would look to do is kind of, as a pay tribute to the Howard Johnson, is create kind of that cupola on top that was kind of a lighthouse beacon, I want to say, to travelers on the highway to pull over and have that ice cream and whatnot. So that's one of the elements we're looking to kind of pay homage to the Howard Johnsons, is create that cupola and adapt the building and adapt it to a modern use to accommodate new retailers.
Oh, but the building would still need to come down in order to.
So another
accommodate
element,
is there a larger vision that's been presented to any other town committees?
not the committee, we haven't been
Oh,
before
okay.
planning board or any other, just the town staff.
Oh,
But right now, one of the challenging elements of this site and we used it as a restaurant is that the septic system is completely failed. So anybody that comes in there would have to put a large capital investment into the property to replace the septic that's not on sewer. So the septic system would have to be replaced, and that's a significant cost. And they're just, the current owner, I don't think is able to do that. So that's where we're looking to kind of come in and help kind of transform the building to the next state.
thank you. Are there any other comments from the public or other people present here today? If not, would the commission be ready for a vote? And would there be a motion on the floor?
So I certainly make a motion to preserve the structure and issue a demolition delay.
Okay.
I would second that.
Okay, okay, we can take a vote on that to implement a demolition delay. Alan, Alan, do you want to go first?
Yep.
Say yes. And
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Nancy,
I'll say yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Well, I hate to be a contrarian, but I have to vote no. But the motion carries. The procedure from here, I think Anne can clarify that I believe it's the demolition delay would apply to this structure. And it would be great to see any additional information on the history or more on the interior of the structure. So if at any time you feel like you have something that might mitigate a 1-year delay, you could return again to the commission. And that could be mitigated at some point, should it be deemed appropriate. Is that correct, Anne? I think it is.
Yes, they can submit more materials and have you reconsider. To see,
Okay,
reconsider whether it's preferably preserved or not.
okay,
Sometimes applicants bring in the proposed new structure. So you all can see, what would be in its place. Or you could also offer to document the structure, do a historic structures report and provide details on the historic structure.
that's excellent, yeah. Okay, thank you both. I'll be paying more attention to what other committees in town are hearing and thinking about how that broader property should be used, not our purview here tonight. But thank you, Mr. Silverstein, Mr. McCormick, for coming. Thank you
I
very much.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okey-doke. That's one. The second one is demolition review from Mark Schulman, 23 Revolutionary Road. Mr. Schulman. Oh, Anne, I just lost all of you. There you are. Okay. Mr. Schulman, are you prepared to speak now?
Actually, Madam Chair, Mr. Schulman has asked me to represent him in this matter as well.
Oh, okay,
With your indulgence.
okay.
So I did also review the materials submitted to the commission in respect to this property. It's a house that was constructed in 1967, actually, not in 1965. It is not a modular home. It is just standard lumber. It was built by New England Homes, but if you look on New England Homes' own website, they very clearly state, and we confirm this by speaking to them, that they did not begin to construct modular homes until 1968. So this is not a modular home. It's not a home of any particular significance. It's of a style. It has very little glass, unlike some of the more significant homes. It is literally built into the dirt and is being eaten by insects. It's got air quality issues inside. I don't know if the members of the commission had a chance to go by it. It's not a particularly interesting or attractive home. And Mr. Schulman is hoping to build a new home that he can live in, that his son can visit comfortably without getting sick. There are no terraces or decks. There are no steel beams standard. There's one steel beam, but it's the steel beams that are required for a modular home are not present. So I think the premise that this is a historically significant home because it's an early example of a modular home built by New England Homes is just mistaken. It's not. There are saw cuts on the wood beams inside that show that it's just a stick-built house that was started by a different company. New England Homes took it over. If you look at the building permit history, for all of those reasons, Mr. Schulman would respectfully ask that he be permitted to demolish the structure and not have to wait a year.
Okay, members of the commission, thoughts at this point?
I've driven up there and driven around the house, and I don't have an issue with that house being I don't see any the significance being preferably preserved. So
Anybody else?
Yeah,
I just wanted to speak as in a butter whenever my time comes.
Okay, well, I'll be right back to you. Nancy?
Yeah, I went by today and I saw that the drive, it looked like the house is quite deep in the land. When you go on Revolutionary Road, the house is sunken in at a lower level. So, and the drive on edge, it looks like it has been excavated recently, and I've just wondered why.
It's an attempt to dry it out. A number of trees were removed around it. As I said, there have been a lot of concerns by Mr. Schulman about the house. He's removed carpeting in the basement. He's removed some vegetation to try to air the place out, frankly, and this is where he's come to.
Okay, thanks.
And did you say there was no foundation?
Oh, there's a
House,
foundation.
There's no basement? No you just.
Oh, no, there is a basement.
Oh, okay. The drainage looks like it should be highly positive. The way the house sits, it certainly goes downhill at a great angle.
But a good chunk of it is underground.
Yeah.
Of the living space as well. So it's...
Yeah. I did look at photographs when it was on the market, which showed the interior, which gives actually a more attractive appearance to the house. But I did read the staff notes on this. I thought it was interesting history. Anybody else on the commission?
Well, I did see that, I believe it was Anne, I'm assuming, referenced the architectural style as having some relevance. Are we allowed to ask Anne to comment on that?
I think so. Her staff notes were posted.
Right.
Yes, so this is a mid-century modern house.
Right.
I think is very attractive. Others may have different viewpoints, and this is an area of New England where mid-century modern is significant because, of course, Walter Gropius and Brewer lived nearby in Lincoln, and so Lexington, Lincoln, and Concord are known for their mid-century modern houses, and this is actually not one designed by a famous architect, but it's one sort of for every man, and I think that that is a valid work of art and a valid impulse too, of course, to make this high design available to everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Anne. Nancy, you're thinking? Anything, any comments, thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm having just like the last demo review of Howard Johnson's. This one, if the house really has cannot, if it's true that the house, the health concerns cannot be addressed, I guess that's hard for me to understand because the house has been there for quite a
Right.
long time. So are these health concerns, the moisture new, or have they always been there? That would be the first question I would have. And also, I really spent a lot of time reading the information that was written in Lexington of their review. It was really, really fascinating. Actually, I learned a lot from that. This house that doesn't seem to fit into that modular house design. If that's true, if it's not in fact a modular house, then I guess the information that we got needs to be correct, or that we wrote needs to be corrected. Yeah, so I think that's my only concern. I don't understand when the moisture issues started.
No, if I can make a comment, and I don't mean to challenge anything, but having been having a construction company, having been a developer for many years, having restored many historic structures, when you have a structure that has age, and Alan can attest to this, I'm sure, there are always issues. There's always deterioration, whether it's wood, whether it's metal, whatever it may be, and when a structure is evaluated for some retrofitting or redevelopment, et cetera, at that point, there's usually 80% deterioration in certain areas or whatever. But I can assure you, just having worked, all structures for the most part can be saved. Yes, there's a cost-benefit ratio to each aspect of that. And it's not for us to evaluate that, but the planning department and Anne, who is impeccable with what she does, has articulated the fact that there is architectural relevance to the structure. And she made reference to Gropius, et cetera. I know my daughter worked at the Gropius house one summer. I think that we should move to issue the delay, and if there's some dialogue that we can have over the next few months to see, and further evaluate it, then maybe at that point maybe it makes sense. But at this point, I don't know if you need to have other comments, if Chessie's made a comment yet, et cetera. But I do think that again, we're at the same place, that the structure should be. We should try to save it, or certainly some portion of it.
Could I just really quickly?
Who's speaking in first?
I'm sorry, it's Jonathan Silverstein.
I'd like to let another
Fair
member
enough.
have a chance if she has anything to say. Chessie, do you have anything to add?
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay,
Thanks, Nancy.
I would only say that the interior pictures that I saw were much more interesting and intact than maybe the outside would give you a chance. But Mr. Silverstein, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, again, the exterior, the siding is literally underground. I can't speak to exactly when the moisture started. It probably has been a process over many years. And certainly if you throw enough money at any structure, any issue can be resolved. I guess the question is, if a structure is 50 years or more old, if it's automatically going to be preferably preserved,
No.
it sort of renders this process a nullity. And I suppose, you know, the premise of the staff report that I read is that this is an example of a modular home, an early modular home, constructed by New England Homes, and it's not. And
One of the
it's not even particularly attractive on the outside. It doesn't have all the windows. It doesn't have the deep overhang. You know, it had a couple deep overhangs, but it's not.
Okay,
So I would just ask. I would ask the commission to recognize that there are people who own these properties, and that saying that if they throw enough money at it, they can fix any problem, isn't the same as that the property should be preserved.
Anne, did you have something?
Right,
to clarify?
there were a couple of premises in that report, and one of them was that it is a mid-century modern house. So the style was
Yes.
part of the criteria too. And I didn't call the fabricator to find out whether, I'm so glad that you did do further research and found out that it wasn't a prefab home, which I assumed it was because that's what they're known for. So thank you for that correction. But it is based on style as well as construction.
Is Michael, I'm sorry, did you make a motion?
I did not, because I certainly wanted to give Chessie a chance to
Okay.
comment, and anybody else. But again, I'm looking at what Anne's comments, and certainly, you know, and
Just,
basing it on my own. I did look at the house, and having said that, I'll stop talking and wait for, you know, you to tell us what to do.
Mr. Abramson?
Thank you. I live at, Mark and I are butters through our backyards. I live on Independence Road. And I just want to say first that Mark has been ever courteous and responsive to our conversations over a couple of years. And so I want to tread softly. I don't want to rock the boat, but I'll just put in my couple quick remarks and let you go on. It is clearly a recognizable mid-century modern house. High end, it's an affordable everyman's house. It exemplifies the entire movement in an area of country precisely known for this kind of house. Now, because there's been massive tree cutting and excavation, it isn't showing very well right now, but that's not part of it. And I would just add quickly, you know, this is a gem of a neighborhood, as you know. It is close to town. It's close to the Orchard House. It's historically unique in several different ways. It was craftily built into the existing kettle hole. I don't know if kettle hole is the scientific term, but the existing structure fits the landscape. It is not built at street on parallel with the houses on Revolutionary Road. And it is close to, but I guess not quite abutting, the pond that kids go to skate. They come down my driveway, they go around into Mark's yard, and they go to the pond. You know, I respect Mark's right to do what he has to do. My fear is that this is a house, you know, that fits the neighborhood, that clearly is a mid-century modern house. It exemplifies the entire movement. And my fear is, and I'm not sure this is in with your preview, it won't be built on parallel street level with Revolutionary Road, that the only thing that can be done is to dip it down into backyards. Essentially, where Mark and our backyards built is where I think it has to go. And that would be a mess. And obviously, that's not quite a historical theme, but I think when you take the nature of this historic neighborhood, the survival of this in the place it was built to capture, the environmental pond, et cetera, et cetera. I was hoping that any kind of moisture problems would abate with, what was a massive tree cutting. And so I'm still hoping that there's time to that, but I'm going to say again that Mark has been, quite a respectful neighborhood. And I just wanted to say some things, but I don't think my views should be determinative of anything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is there a motion to be made here?
Sure. I will make a motion to issue a demolition delay.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, seconded by Nancy. Alan,
I'm in favor of the demolition delay. Yes.
Michael, I assume you are.
Yes, I just said, I think I said that initially
Yes, you
first.
did. Yes, you did. Nancy,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes, yes.
and this time I really feel that it would be yes. From my point of view, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You. Okay. Now we can go on to the preservation restriction review, First Parish Church. And the Right Tavern, I think the emphasis is going to be on the PR, the preservation restriction, and maybe you guys can straighten me out on that because there's other things mentioned as well.
That's right, Nancy. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you all. Nice to see you all. I'm sorry I'm so hairy. I realize I need a haircut this weekend, so I'm almost unrecognizable. But thank you for having us. Yes, we're going to just look at and Lynn Spencer's here as well. We're just going to look at the what we're calling the phase 1 work, the structural repairs to the Right Tavern. We're not going to look at anything about any additions or landscape. That we're pausing on that work at the moment. So does that make sense?
yeah, I did, just to clarify, I noticed that the HDC met on June 1st and you were on the agenda for that, and what happened there?
I think we actually what's the right word?
Continued?
Continue. Yes, God.
Continue.
We continue to the 15th, and we may continue
You're the chair.
again. Right.
Okay.
A former chair. See, you forget it very quickly. It disappears.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've
Okay.
continued it, and we may not even present next week. I think we're really taking all the input into deep consideration and trying to figure out what the best way forward is. So the first thing really is to focus on this work on the existing structure, mostly because it, in theory, will sort of disappear. And what we're here to do is address any concerns there might be about the preservation restriction, and we could walk through the drawings. I know there was a new set that was sent, and I think it might have even been this morning. It's got a slight modification from the set that was sent before, but we'd be happy to answer questions or walk through it, or maybe we should just kind of walk through the set briefly, or the plans at least.
Could you?
Oh, thank you, Anne.
So this is Lynn Spencer. Could I
Yes.
just jump in here for a second?
Lynn, please. Yes, please do.
Welcome.
It's good to see you all. You might remember that it was a year ago, and maybe a little bit more. I think it was in April that I worked with the attorney drafting the preservation restriction and identifying the character defining features, both interior and exterior, that needed to be protected. So I really do think that what we're talking about tonight is looking at structural repairs that have been identified by our structural engineer as being necessary, regardless of any sort of future use or changes in the Right Tavern. So this is really repairing what we have and preserving and protecting it. And certainly our planning and our thinking was very much conditioned by respect for historic fabric. And at the same time, making sure that the usefulness of this structure would persist. I cannot help but reflect on the conversation or this discussion that I just heard about the mid-century modern building. And I simply will say, reinforce the need for vigilance on maintenance and repair is always critical. And that's what this story is about. So what you're looking at, I think there were 14 sheets that were sent along to the committee. And I respect that there's varying levels, there's expertise on this committee. So I'm sure I'm going to have some real questions about structure. What we're looking at here is the foundation plan. This is the basement plan. And you'll see the original main block of the building. The L, yes, thank you, Peter. The L to the side. And then the 1926 addition, the single floor addition that was added, which has been named the sunroom. So what you're looking at with these squares and these dots are footings that would support columns. And this is all part of the repair and reinforcement of the first floor framing. It's for those of you, and in fact, many members of this committee have been on tours of the house. And I think we've had searching conversations in the basement. But it is a bit of a hodgepodge. So with the next, so you're looking at what would be footings for columns, and the dark, biggish circles are new columns. The smaller dots indicate columns and footings that are already there. There was quite an extensive project in the 1990s adding additional support, but we do not know exactly the nature of those footings. So as part of this project, the contractor would be actually opening up the mud slab and then taking a look at the depth of those footings. And if those footings are good, we'll keep them. If not, we'll have to look at putting in new footings. So it's a little bit of a dance down there. If we go to the next plan. This is where it gets interesting.
My favorite.
I know you love this stuff, Nancy. I do too. So this is trying to sort of make sense of the structure that's there, preserving what is there, but there's a lot of sistering. So we're adding a combination of 1x6s, 1x7s, depending on the dimension of it. 8.5 by 10.5, and so on. Our structural engineers were Structures North, Salem-based company that is very experienced with timber frame buildings. We work consistently with them on many historic buildings, and we're always trying to sort of both hold them back and yet at the same time ensure that we are achieving the goals. And in this case, this is actually making sure that that first floor, which has been used for assembly and educational purposes, but at this point, that first floor is well below framing capacity. So this is actually pushing this. Sorry.
I have a question because I think in the engineering plans, the first floor was actually the basement, and it was the first floor, and some of them were the first floor was what we would most of us would think of as the first floor. Is this the ceiling of the basement underneath the first floor?
Yes.
Because the toilet looks like it's still the basement.
Yes. I'm sorry, Nancy.
Okay.
You're making a great point. You're standing on the basement floor looking up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I thought.
So, and yes, there is that clever little toilet and that toilet room, which allows anyone to look into the crawl space of the sunroom and see a big tree stump down there. We've all done that. We've all had that experience.
Right.
But yes, you're looking up and you're looking at where we're actually working to save the existing framing, but we're supplementing it. And then, of course, it's being carried on those those posts and footings that you saw on that first plan.
Okay.
I'm happy to, I should pause and say if there's any questions as
You froze.
I think we
You
lost.
froze for us.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
You froze there, Lynn.
It might come back. I see somebody's doing something with up at the top. It looks like maybe it's Anne.
Well, I can try to answer any questions if there are any. But this is, in fact, the way I like to think of it as an architect is that it's as if we've pulled off the flooring itself and we're looking down into the basement. We're standing on the frame of the first floor.
That's helpful too. I think I had more questions the further up we went, but
Well, I think it looks like Lynn will probably have to dial back in. Do you want to go to the next plan?
but
or I
at
can-
least, yeah, at least the diagrams are moving.
Okay. So second floor, actually, what I would say is most in this set, you can see most of the work has actually been taken out of the scope. We had a whole plan to reframe this second floor, and we've essentially removed that scope. So what you're seeing here is mostly throughput from above. There are columns that are carrying loads down and pocketing into the existing frame.
What number is this sheet?
This is 1.2.
1.2. Okay, okay, got it.
And so there's much less work on this floor than there was before. And in fact, I think that's partly because of the feedback we received, but also because it really didn't make any sense. Oh, can you hold on a sec? Lynn's calling me. Let me just pause for a sec.
Don't we all love Zoom?
Well, we're just going to walk through it. Lynn's having trouble getting back into the meeting, so I'm just going to walk through the plans, and if there are questions, I'll sort of pass them on.
Is she trying also to get in by phone?
Okay.
Sometimes my phone
Yeah.
works.
I think Nancy, I think Lynn's going to try to go through her phone. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Well, talk to you soon. Bye.
okay.
Okay. Sorry about that. The technology gods are not with us. So, okay. So does that make sense? This really is I'm looking at my own screen, of course. We're scabbing on a few 2x8s, and there's a little bit of a Dutchman repair going on. But that's the work mostly on this floor. Does that make sense?
And yeah, what happens to the character defining features if they're walls, ceilings, trim?
So I think the general intent is really to sort of, if we have to take something off, we'll take it off and put it back. I think the idea is to essentially make whatever we're doing disappear. So we're looking to stabilize and then restore back to original. Now there'll obviously be some minor modifications if we have to add some bracing, but the intention is to keep it as minimal as possible, and really to just, at the end, when the contractor backs out of the building, you wouldn't really be able to tell much was done.
Yeah,
That's the idea.
I'm just trying to remember how much original ceiling and how much original wall plastering and whatnot. I don't remember specifically. So
There's some, and I think we're not going to do any kind of wholesale demolition. I think what we're going to do is very careful, sort of surgical removals of anything we need to get, if we need to pocket into a wall, for instance, and then we would patch and repair and essentially try to make it look like it was never touched. At least that's the intent. And there may be some specific follow-ups that we'll have to do.
Okay, and I know you can button up ceilings as opposed to taking them down and putting
Right.
new plaster in place, so I.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I think what's interesting is there's really not a demolition scope. It's really, it's essentially a preservation project. So the mandate to the contractor is there really isn't any demolition. It's really a kind of surgical repair and refit, as it were.
okay,
So, and we're really just going to restore the building to the condition it's in now. In fact, we may even rebuild that stair, the little stair on the Monument Square side.
Mhm.
So that's the second floor plan. Let's see. Oh yeah, thank you. And so here's the third floor framing. I'm just going to go up to this myself. So similarly, there are these posts coming down. There are essentially 6 or 8 posts. Anything that has to be done on the exterior as well. You can see up on the sort of plan north here, we're going to have to remove some of the siding to get into the wall. We would replace that, repaint it, feather it in as best we can. I know that exterior paint job is a real challenge. So, but we'll do our best to make it look like it's never been touched.
can you reuse the siding, or you're gonna try?
I
probably?
think we will try to reuse it. The condition is a little iffy, but that's the idea, would be to reuse it.
Mhm. And is that extensive? Does it go across the whole front of the tavern? Is it?
No,
more-
I don't think so. It's just at the post locations. And
Okay,
but again, I think what we want is the contractor to look at it first. And then I think frankly, what we'd like to do is if anything changes in this scenario, we'd come back to you, maybe for a special meeting or a site visit or something, to say, look, we need to do some more extensive removal or replacement. And that's how I'd prefer to proceed. That's what I would do with the HDC as well. But does that make sense?
Mhm.
I just
Okay.
have a quick question. When was the painting, the exterior painting done last?
I think it was in the 80s. It was stained, not painted, and that's why it looks like it does. It's sort of a very odd kind of mottled red.
Yeah,
So and we were essentially trying to restore a bad job, if you will. So that's a bit of a challenge, but the idea is to make it look, monolithic as we leave.
uniform.
That's right, uniform, not monolithic. And then I think the last plan is the roof framing. And let me see if I can get to this plan myself. So here we're really doing a similar, almost like with the basement, the first floor framing, we're essentially sistering the existing framing to stabilize the trusses. And up here, it's a little odd. There was some demolition done before this project started. I mean, you've been up there, Nancy. I think you probably remember how it's not in great shape up there. So
Mhm.
what I would like to really do is stabilize this so that it can be more carefully preserved up there.
Is this sheet 2.4 or sheet 2.5? I know that's where some changes were made.
This is 1.4.
Oh, we're still on 1.4. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, trying to keep up.
Oh, that's all right. It's a lot of sheets. So we can go to the next sheet, 2.0. These are some of the details.
Can I just ask a question, because
Sure.
as an architect, I just want to make sure that I understand what sistering means. Sistering means that you're just reinforcing what's already there by
Essentially putting something on either side. So
Okay. Okay, right. So you're
it's
not
a set.
there are no places where extra reinforcement beams have to be put where there weren't originally any.
That's right. That's right. It's a sort of sexist term, I realize, but
You're-
Oh, Jeez.
No,
So Nancy, if I can just say something, I look at this project and this is going to be an add-on to the existing structure that's there versus the basement of that dwelling that we had a couple of months ago where they just took all the old beams down that were in the basement and they put up LVLs, and this is an exploratory project. And no one knows what's behind those walls.
yeah. Yeah.
They just don't know, because it's not like a 70-year-old house or, you know, a 100-year-old house. This is what, a 300-year-old structure, and that's been added on to every couple of decades.
Yeah,
We're taking educated guesses. There's been some exploratory demolition. You've probably seen the little holes that have been opened up. So that's what this design is based on, is that exploratory work.
yeah.
But unlike that,
answer the
remember
question?
the basement of the structure of that large house? Do you remember that one on the river?
Oh, the one that was almost gone.
Right.
That one? Oh
Correct.
boy, I don't remember
Yeah.
I didn't visit that one, I guess.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question, Nancy?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure. So these are a little hard to tie back to the drawings, but you can see, I think generally what we're doing is adding a little bit of, you can see on the detail D, for instance, there's a little bit of there's an angle that's added to an existing timber plate. So we're selectively using a little bit of metal to reinforce certain connections. And then this would be covered by, I don't remember, this doesn't show the finishes, but oftentimes these are covered in plaster, or they're buried, or they're invisible. You can't see them because they're behind other framing. But the idea would be you wouldn't see any of this framing after the contractor's finished, the new bracing, I mean.
To get to the rough window opening, you have to remove the window and all the stuff. Is that correct? Or am I not understanding this?
I don't know that we have to remove the whole window. It's actually a question for the contractor, and I don't think we're planning on removing any windows. Lynn would actually be able to answer that question. If we
And do you
do,
have- Oh, sorry.
go ahead. No, you go.
Do you have a contractor at this point?
Yes, it's Yankee
Oh,
Steeple.
Steeplejack. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Sorry. I should have remembered.
That's okay.
There we go.
And Tom is standing by, and I think you know his work. He's a pretty careful guy.
Okay.
Okay, hang on a sec. We could go to the next drawing. So Lynn just has no internet connection. Oh, well.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
All right. Safer that way. I'll do my best. Okay, so this is this 2.1 or 2.0?
2.2, 2.2.
2.2. So these are some of the details up in the attic. So again, the intent is that any of the framing, the bracing would be either concealed or recovered after we leave.
Mhm.
There's some basement details. You can see some of the, I mean, this is, you'll see the design intent here on like detail O there is where if there's spalled concrete, we remove it, we trowel in new concrete, try to match the adjacent mortar or the adjacent concrete.
Mhm. Okay. And this sheet is where some things have changed, right? Some things have been removed 4 and 5.
Yeah, there were a couple of details on the lower left that we're not doing that work anymore. So this is really just, these details now just show the new columns or the the footings, that if we have to adjust them, and how we'd feather in new brick if it's failed, try to get a brick that's compatible with the existing brick.
So is this where we're first seeing flitch plates, and that's what's missing now? The flitch plates were removed?
We did, that's right, the flitch plates came out.
Okay, got it. And it's the same, I guess it's the same idea on the next sheet too.
That's right. Yep. We took that out.
What does that mean?
How do you mean?
What's a flitch plate, and why did you remove them?
A flitch plate is it's a way of, it's not a sistering, it's a way of stabilizing a structural member. And it turned out we didn't need to do it. I think that was back when we were doing more extensive work on the second floor, because we were anticipating much larger loads.
Okay, thank you. Okay. These are metal ties, right?
So that detail is a metal strap. That's correct.
So there's been a lot of talk about metal stuff, and I know Lynn said at some point there were some metal ties that were removed, or beams, metal beams.
Well, we remember we had in the trusses here at one point we had cables that were tying and we've taken that out, because again, the load is significantly different from what it was anticipated to be. So that just got removed from the scope.
So are you persuaded that these metal straps are needed? These are new, right? And I don't quite understand where they go.
Are you talking about the straps on the last?
Yeah, that one.
The detail X there.
Where do they go? And
I think.
Are you persuaded these are necessary?
I'm not sure they're absolutely necessary, to tell you the truth, Nancy. And I think this is partly what we're looking to do when we get up there and get into the structure to see if they're absolutely necessary. And that's exactly right. I think the scope may shrink, as it were.
Okay, got it.
But I think we've put it in there for safety purposes, just in case.
Okay. Phew.
So really the big idea is to minimize our impact on the structure, to stabilize it, to sort of get in and back out carefully and restore the finishes to the existing condition. I don't think, because we're not sure what this phase 2 work is going to be, we're not going to really change the interior at all, even in the sunroom. I don't think we're going to add any infrastructure work to this phase. This is really just the structural stabilization work.
Okay, the last thing I have, and I don't mean to dominate this conversation, but I spent most of the day trying to figure out something that was really hard for me. That it seems like you're repairing the steps that are maybe going to be removed when the addition is added. So there's that. Are you really going to repair that if you're going to ultimately remove that whole little structure?
Well, so I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure that idea is going to fly. So what we'd like to do is stabilize the stair for now and really just keep it in place, keep it intact. But it's got there's some rotted framing underneath that I'd like to see stabilized so that it's safe to use, frankly. So that's when it says rebuild existing stairway. I think that should say, it's almost like a patch and repair note.
Okay. And can you share anything about that what had been shown may not be what you end up with?
Well, I think we need to, we've had a lot of good feedback. I think it's a very difficult problem to create a new entrance on that
Yeah.
side of the building.
Yeah,
And so we're gonna think about it. I'm encouraging the board to pause and let's stabilize and refresh the building as it is, and then use it for the intended purposes and see how that goes. And I think we want to think more about that quadrant of the building, for a number of reasons.
yeah, it's interesting because those are newer structures, and your alternative is the original side door that's practically falling off its hinges right now. So that keeps getting all the traffic, and yeah, hard problem.
Yeah, so I think we want to think about it a lot more than we don't want to keep coming back every few weeks with a slightly new idea. I think we want to step back, think about it. But I think really the idea is to stabilize that quadrant of the building for the moment. And we may need to do some landscape work because you probably remember there's some deteriorated brickwork and concrete work on the landscape. And I think the yew tree and whatever's going on over there, we haven't really looked at that in terms of just the sort of the garden.
That's its own problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
we'll come back with that.
I'll be quiet. Thank you.
No, that's all right. No, you're perfectly. So happy to answer any other questions. I realize I'm sort of rambling a little bit.
No. It's evolutionary, I guess. You've got an old building. Alan, do you have any thoughts?
Nope. I just, we've got to start somewhere. So it's the plan looks good. We got to start somewhere. So it's exploratory, and you got to get in and see what's holding this building up and see what needs to be held up.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
Surprise. We get lots of surprises. Maybe anybody else? Michael, Nancy, Chessie?
I think a lot of effort and work has been put into this. Peter, certainly his reputation is impeccable. So, and the team that he has working on it. So I think, working with them to preserve the structure is obviously, from everybody's perspective, significantly important. And I think it's a next step with any of these 300-year-old, 200-year-old structures.
Right. Thank you, Michael.
Nancy?
Thank you.
Yeah, I too I'm glad you asked about the steps, because that was my big question. I didn't quite understand what rebuilding them meant, but now I understand. And I'm also glad you're slowing down. I think it's worthwhile taking the time to get it right. How long do you think the work that we've talked about tonight would take?
I think he assumed it might take 3 months total, depending on when he gets started. I think we want to try to avoid winter conditions, but we're going to try to do it all. No lay down space. We'll take the 2 parking spots on the Church Green side, one for a contractor truck, one probably for a dumpster, and material will come in as needed. But because it's a surgical repair, there's really not a big site impact. So I think he said 3 months, but I'll verify that. I don't have the schedule in front of me.
That might be a little bit different from what the Wright Tavern update said, but I thought it said 6 to 9 months, but that may have been with the more ambitious.
I think that's right.
Program.
That's why I'm hesitating, Nancy. I think this is a smaller scope.
Yeah, I think I agree with Nancy. A more cautious, step-by-step and minimalist approach is it's good to see that kind of mind frame take over, I think. Because it's a fragile building. Everybody knows it needs repair, but it's also a little dicey. So
I just have one other question. Who, as this work is going on, I know that decisions are going to have to be made on the spot. Who is going to be the sort of oversight person?
So you mean for the contractor? Or well, Lynn Spencer, Lynn and Doug will be involved. I'll be the board representative. I think it might not be a bad idea to have let's say a check-in every couple weeks or maybe once a month with you all. We've done this with the HDC where somebody comes and attends a site meeting every few weeks just to talk about progress. Or we could report to you all, but I'll be there much of the time. I'll be checking in weekly, but I think the architect would probably be the best representative for the team, if you will.
And I think from here on, we're going to wait to hear a little bit more from you and see a little bit more from you. Is that correct? At some point, the commission probably needs to make some kind of communication back to you guys about this. We just saw the materials. I don't know. We need a little time probably. So
Okay, I think
can you clarify the process on that as you understand it?
I'm sorry, did you ask?
In terms of the commission getting back to the Right Tavern folks about next steps and how they get our approval, questions, whatever concerns, whatever they might still be.
Right, so are you saying that you would not be ready to take a vote tonight?
That's more a question than anything else. I mean, we saw changes in pretty short order. I think seems like many of the questions have been answered. What do
Right,
people think?
because they do have a schedule they need to meet, and you all meet just once a month. So I'm not sure if there were significant questions that you think that you would need to hold off on a vote, or whether your questions have been answered sufficiently and
I'm just curious about
whether it needs to go, actually, whether it certainly needs your approval, but whether it needs, an actual vote. It's not clear what the process is, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
Do we need to take a vote tonight or?
Well, I think that's what we're saying.
move things
We're
along?
not exactly sure what the process is for giving our assent or cautions. So we have had a special meeting in the past. So we could schedule another meeting if there are questions. My major question is, and I think Lynn was pretty specific with me, but I don't think I could repeat what she said about the metal details and the metal ties and detail X, that those metal ties.
okay, well,
I think you said
Mhm.
they're if you don't need them, you're not going to do them.
I think that's generally true, but yes, I could get you a specific answer about that, Nancy. I think frankly, just to jump in real quick, I think what we'd be looking for is approval to go ahead and begin to negotiate a contract. We don't have a contract with the contractor yet. So I think just to get that in motion is really what we're looking for, approval of the general approach. And then of course, if you have any questions or concerns, we would try to answer them in short order. But
Okay.
I don't think.
And of course, ordering materials takes quite a lot of time too. So I think the sooner the better, to sort of give them a preliminary go ahead, and with the assurance that they'll be checking in with you.
I think a general preliminary approval, and it seems okay to me. Others, I think I've heard. Do other people have opinions about that?
No, I think if everybody feels comfortable that the questions have been answered for the most part, that with the information that is known, and if Anne is comfortable, representing the planning department, and the members are comfortable with the information so far, I don't see the downside with a vote to have them proceed to get clarity on the issues that are not clarified at the moment. Does that make sense, Peter? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, sure, absolutely
Yeah.
right. Michael,
General,
thank you.
what I wrote down was, and okay with the general approach with, communication back and forth as you find out answers on some of those.
Yes,
other-
and of course, if you come up with any questions later tonight or tomorrow, please, essentially we would issue addenda back to you to say, here's a clarifying answer about a metal detail or something,
Yeah.
or a finished detail.
Probably your discussion with the contractor is going to have a little back and forth about certain
Right.
things as well. So,
Right, because, means and methods are always, it's a
Yeah.
little dicey there.
okay.
So if you need a motion, I certainly want to make a motion to proceed. If not,
Do we all feel like we need a motion to give general approval, or is that the sense of the meeting, and is that good enough?
well, is that what Peter's looking for?
Probably.
A vote,
Sure.
okay? And Ann, are you comfortable with that, Ann?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's two. And so
Okay.
now
Everybody
I make
else?
I make a motion that we vote to approve.
Well, we don't need to make a motion. We had a sense of the
Okay.
meeting.
So do we need to vote?
I don't think so.
Oh,
Do you
But-
think, Peter?
but Peter, I think Peter's looking for a vote,
Comfortable with the, well, I didn't hear him say that.
but I asked him.
Well, actually, I don't know your process either exactly.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think a vote would be good, only just to put a pin in it, as it were, to just say, we've seen it, we've reviewed it, generally approve the approach, please. Any changes, please inform us.
I make a motion that the commission vote to generally approve the approach as presented in whatever the last edition of the plans were, because there
The
were
most
some
recent
changes
plans.
today. With the understanding that there'd be close communication going forward on some of the findings that might change that approach, and encouraging, the modest step at a time approach. I guess that's not the right word, but just ongoing communication about how these plans might change. So that's a motion.
I'll second that.
Alan,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes,
Nancy,
Yes.
Chessie,
Yes.
and I vote yes too. So thank you.
Thank you all.
That feels like progress.
It is progress. No, I appreciate all your time.
Hard one, and I'm so sorry, Lynn had,
Me too.
Do we think there were problems with her internet?
I think there were. She kept calling me and saying I have no internet connection, so I
Oh,
just didn't want to keep interrupting the meeting.
That's awful.
Well, it just means you have to see her in person. She'll be in town.
That's all right.
All right. Well, listen, thank you all for your time, and I appreciate your input and patience with us.
Thanks for you. This feels like it's going somewhere, which is excellent.
All right. We'll keep
Okay.
you posted.
We're out of the starting gate.
So
Thank
we
you all.
have, thank you. Good night. Okay, let's see. We have done that. The historic,
they can see you.
I'm sorry.
That's my daughter came in to say hi.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
She's very nice. She's the president of the Noe Valley Democratic Committee in San Francisco. You can say hi.
Oh, excellent. My daughter's
Say hi.
Hi,
those too.
I'm also an
Hi.
elected delegate.
Yeah, she's the delegate. This is Carrie Bonds.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very good. Okay, do we have update on the preservation plan? I think that's moved forward. And Anne, are you going to speak to that?
Sure, yes. So we did receive the materials from Mass Historical Commission. They sent, and there was a meeting too, where they sort of gave us the update on how to proceed with the request for quotes. So they gave samples and then also a sample scope, and I guess that they restricted how they approach the scope. So there's not much variation from that we can introduce. But in terms of, but we can sort of introduce the needs of Concord up, not within the scope, but within the full RFQ. sort of at the beginning so that people can try to address our specific needs there. But the concern was that if we make it too specific, then we may not get enough bidders because they may not have all of the qualifications that we are adding in.
Oh, interesting. So you're at the stage of trying to get the best possible contractor for the project.
Yeah, that's right.
So tailoring it to.
For the best possible wording in the
All right.
RFQ.
Yeah. Oh, congratulations. That also feels like progress.
Yes, yes. This was for next meeting.
So I guess we are at item number 6, and we are in need of electing a new chair. Melissa can't be with us tonight, as is obvious. But I have an idea about a nomination. I don't know if other people do as well, or.
Well, let me ask a question. Ryan is not with us.
Right.
Okay, so it would seem to me that I certainly would be more comfortable if all the 5 members were present when we nominate and vote for a chairperson.
Well, that could be, I think he's got, we didn't lose Jessie. There she is. So we have Jessie and Nancy. I think Ryan, I don't know if you've spoken with him, but I know he is really bogged down right now, and he's traveling. I think he's out of the country and he's traveling a lot. So I don't know what his ability is going to be. And do you know, has he said anything specific about his tenure on the commission? He's not thinking of leaving us, I hope.
He's not thinking of leaving. He had thought that he might step down to associate member, but I think he was convinced to stay on as a full member. So
For
it's right for now.
For
But
now,
I think
anyway.
he is feeling the pressure from work because there are so many evening commitments that he wasn't expecting.
I think I have something of a preference for getting this done, because we don't have a chair. So
Nancy, what is your status on the commission now? Is your
I am officially an associate member. So I'm no longer a full member.
so who is I'm not who is a full
And then
member?
there's
Associate
the select board, I think the town manager appoints. So the town manager will have a point. And catch me if I'm wrong, but I think that's, I had a letter around here. Hang on. Yeah, that's what it is. The town manager appoints and the select board approves members for the commission. So that would mean my position now is an associate member. That means there's 2 people with associate memberships who could have the opportunity to become full members. So is that what you were asking?
I guess so. Are we going to be short of a member, or we have enough members overall, right?
We have 5 members, 5 voting members. Me, Melissa, Michael, Alan, and Ryan. So we're all here except for Ryan. I'm glad he's not stepping away right now. But I do know that it's a big job, and he might not be prepared to take that on right now. So the chairmanship is for how many years? Is it a 2-year appointment, Anne or Michael? You seem up on these details.
No, I thought that it was the chairmanship was a 3-year appointment, or if someone stepped down, et cetera, how that works during the 3-year term.
Then
But
if it's 3 years, then somebody takes that position, then they fill that position, the term of that position. I do know that. I've seen that happen before. And then at the end of that unfulfilled appointment, then the position becomes open again.
Well, it seemed to me, just predicated on what I just heard, that we need clarity from Ryan as to A, are you staying on? B, does your workload allow you to be nominated as a chairperson to assume the role and the responsibilities? I don't believe we can appoint an associate a chairperson, can we?
No, I don't think so. I actually don't know.
So I think we need,
But Anne might know.
can an associate member become a chairperson?
You going to share your idea for the new chair, Nancy?
Huh? Well, I was hoping to nominate Alan tonight, actually. And Alan's not an associate, so. And I don't think, my understanding is Ryan's very busy, so.
Well, clearly, if Alan's the chairperson, I could certainly second that.
Okay, I would entertain a vote then. So Michael,
I vote yes.
Nance,
Well, I guess I'd like to ask, I don't know any of you well, and it's a lot of work, and I just want to know if Alan, if you want to do that work.
Yeah, I'd be honored to do that work. Yeah, to do the work moving forward. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's quite an honor. So yes,
Right.
I need some help along the way.
And he's extremely capable.
yeah.
That's
and
for sure.
He has a different perspective in terms of buildings, and similar to some of your experience, Michael, as a developer. I think those are perspectives that are really good.
And I'll be relying on all the committee members,
Right.
Full members.
Right.
Would you like to vote for yourself?
Maybe
I guess we're on that. I guess we're on Nancy. So Michael's voted yes. Nance,
Two votes, yes.
2 votes.
As long as he wants to do it.
Two votes, yes.
Jesse,
Absolutely. That's so exciting.
I think so too.
you.
So I vote
Thank you.
yes, and if Alan votes yes, then
I vote yes,
Ryan will talk to
and
Ryan.
I'm quite honored. Yes, and I'll give you 110%.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I think
Great.
your long tenure in the community also is going to be great. So
I'm looking forward to it.
you're here. All right. Now, in the near future, we need a party. So we have one. Did anybody read the minutes? I read the January minutes, but I failed to read the May minutes. So
No, I ditto for me.
does it make sense to have a vote on the January 12th, 23 minutes? I can make that motion. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
I so move. Alan,
I second it.
okay, and Michael?
I-
Your vote,
Yes.
and Nancy,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
and Alan, yes, and
Yes.
myself, yes. So we can do that. And we have 2 of us who were, I was buried in 3 different iterations of structural plans. It was- I still feel like I'm not very good at it. So anybody want to vote? Are we prepared to vote on the May 11th meeting minutes? Or can we defer those for a week or a month?
Well, I didn't read them, so I can't vote on it.
Yeah, me too.
We can defer.
We can
Okay.
defer.
Okay.
Yep.
And so on that happy note, Eric's iPad, who do we have there? Hello, Eric.
Mystery.
Eric, you're muted. Interesting.
Hello.
There he is. Eric, welcome and tell us a bit about you.
Eric Young, 49 Crest Street, just an interested citizen, curious about mostly at the beginning about the quote unquote Howard Johnson site.
Oh, interesting. Do you
would
have
have
a history
interesting
with
to
Howard
know.
Johnson?
Yeah, it would have been interesting to know what the plan for the site is, but yeah,
I
just-
share your interest because it's a big site.
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
And
Not really. I agree with the perceived remains of what the building was, but would be interested in knowing what the building or the site may be. Yeah.
But I don't think we're allowed to ask what the plan's going to look like, right?
Understandable. Just was hoping they might say something.
Yeah, I know. I was interested because Michael, you may have heard something from a planning board meeting or another town meeting.
No,
So-
I did not. And,
Oh, okay.
but I'm assuming, I gather if in fact they're looking to demolish it, they have some concept that
Some
they've presented to somebody. And I don't,
Yeah.
if they have not, does Ann know? Have they gone to the planning department to talk with them about
Yeah,
the scope
Anne's
of work?
mixed up. Anne's mixed up with all of us, so maybe she knows.
Yeah. Ann?
I haven't been involved in any of the discussions.
Oh, so as far as you know, the developer and or the owners of the site have not gone to the planning department to explain any.
I would say that. I mean, they may very well have gone to the planning department, but I'm not in.
Okay.
Okay. So
That's interesting.
history remains.
But the only thing we know based on the historical district commission is the Dunkin' Donuts that's going in where the restaurant is. Right?
Oh, so you've actually heard that through HDC.
The last meeting, I think it was HBC. Yeah. The
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
or was it planning? They talked about the lighting, they talked about the facades, they talked about the structure.
He's talking about where the Japanese Chinese restaurant is.
Correct. Yes.
So that is going ahead, that it is definitely going to be a
Yes.
Dunkin' Donuts? Okay.
The whole building or just part of it?
The whole building.
I thought, and they're going to use that building?
No, they're doing a new building there. is
They're
my
going to tear that
understanding.
building down?
Yes.
Oh. I was hearing rumors. This sounds more solid.
Mm.
Wow. I heard they were that either the Japanese or the Chinese restaurant would stay. Oh, that's interesting.
They met with, I forget if, I think it was HDC, that
I'll
they
go back
met.
and check their agenda. I have it. But I will say I tried to listen to their meeting, their last meeting, and it's not posted yet on the YouTube channel. So
Mhm.
I got up to May, but not June. And they
They're
had
talking about lights at the dumpster, and so people can
Oh.
see when it gets dark in the winter time, and they
interesting.
wanted it so it didn't shine in the neighbors, and yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you. Anything else before we adjourn? And if not, everybody speak now or forever hold your peace and
Thank
meeting's
you very much.
adjourned.
I won't disappoint you, so
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Alan.
thank you. A
Congratulations, Alan.
lot of work to
Yeah,
do. Yeah,
That's great.
A lot of
Okay.
work.
thank you.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Hey.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.